بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد اللهم ربنا لك الحمد والشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك اللهم إنا نعوذ بك منك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك رب اغفر لي ذنبي رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني في قولي. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very delighted to be standing here before you, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be invited here today. And so I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers of Muslim Aid Australia. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whosoever does not thank people does not thank Allah Ta'ala. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I have been asked to talk about the importance of smart, small development aid solutions. And I want to start off by reading this quote, which I found to be quite profound, and hopefully it'll be able to set the context for us. He says, while the intellectual leaders sit around and react to events, successful Muslim leaders seek Allah's help and challenge the status quo. In challenging the process, you have to be innovative. At times, you will need to redefine the process in a way that tears down the physical and mental barriers that others have imposed on the Muslim community. And I think this is very important for us if we are to move towards smart initiatives, whatever these initiatives are for the Muslim community. And those who impose barriers, physical or mental, on the Muslim community do not necessarily have to be from outside the Muslim community. Sometimes it is from within the Muslim community that we put these barriers, and really in order to move forward and to start presenting smart solutions, then we need to be able to take the challenge of tearing down some of these physical and mental barriers. And also this particular quote, not only a focus on direct service, such as measuring how many students are educated or how many wells have been dug to provide water as a result of a specific donation or philanthropic initiative, but only a focus on changing patterns of behavior can make headway in alleviating global poverty. And this is also important if we speak about smart initiatives, that we need to be able to challenge and change patterns of behavior and not continue to follow the status quo, and instead of providing innovative solutions, continue to simply repeat existing solutions. And so when I was asked to speak about that which is smart, smart for me is not smart in looks. Of course, they say you're smart in looks sometimes, but I'm not talking about smarts in looks. You can have projects which are smart in look, but this is not what we want. We want that projects that are effective, sustainable, and reliable. And although you may add other terms to define what smart means, but for me, it's about effectiveness, it's about sustainability, and it's about reliability. And by effective, we mean successful in producing a desired or intended result, the degree to which objectives are achieved, and the extent to which targeted problems are solved. In contrast to efficiency, effectiveness is determined without reference to cost, and whereas efficiency means doing the thing right, effectiveness means doing the right thing. And that is what would, I guess, define a project as being smart or not smart. Is it doing the right thing because it is the right thing regardless of the cost and regardless of having to challenge the status quo? And so if we are to speak about smart solutions, then we need to think about effectiveness, not simply that I want to provide yet another project for the sake of another project. And I think as a community, Muslim community, whether it is in this domain or any other domain, we need to be thinking of the long-term effectiveness and not only the short-term provision of a project, but the long-term effectiveness. But also it is important to talk about transformation, To be effective means to be to be able to transform those who are benefiting from the project, whether we are speaking about a school or whether we're speaking about a philanthropic project. Transformation is essential in our sacred tradition. That all of our sacred tradition is focused on the very idea of transformation, beginning with the transformation of the individual and then the transformation, the positive transformation of others. And that is what defines what's smart to me. Now also sustainability is quite important if a project is to be smart. And sustainable meaning pertaining to a system that maintains its own viability by using techniques that allow for continual reuse. This very idea of sustainability is inherent in our sacred tradition. It is part and parcel of being a Muslim to be able to do things in a sustainable way, for Allah Ta'ala loves actions that are sustainable, even if they are small. As in the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated by Aisha, which is in Sahih al-Bukhari, وَأَنَّ أَحَبَّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. And the most beloved of actions or initiatives or projects are those which are sustainable even if they are in quantity small. It's not about how much one gives, it's about the quality of what is given. And that is why on the Day of Judgment our a'mal are not counted, but they are weighed, because Allah Ta'ala looks after quality of a'mal and not the quantity of the a'mal. And that is why there is a proverb that is common among the Arabs that says, قَلِيلٌ دَائِمٌ خَيْرٌ مِنْ كَثِيرٍ مُنْقَطِعٍ. This is not a hadith, but some scholars say it is a culmination of the essence of many of the narratives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the idea of sustainability, meaning that which is little but sustainable is better than that which is abundant or much but is not sustainable. And thirdly, being smart is to be reliable. Reliable is consistently good in quality or performance, able to be trusted. And I think this is very important. One of my PhD students who completed his PhD on leadership processes in Australian Islamic organizations found a common problem, and that is the lack of trust in our organizations. And that is why sometimes there is no sense of reliability. And trust is so important, and it is very much linked to the idea of aman or amana. As Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam narrated by Anas, he says, ما خطبنا نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلا قال لا إيمان لمن لا أمانة له. There is no faith for one who cannot be trusted or who is not reliable in what he produces. Now, in summary, this is just the essence of what I see as smart. And I want to share 3 significant historical narratives or examples before I end. Now, most of us heard of Imam al-Ghazali, no doubt. And most of us heard of his brilliance, particularly, of course, his excellent contribution to the amalgamation, if you wish, of the exoteric and the esoteric aspects of our tradition, the inward and the outward, the spiritual and the legal. In his masterpiece, Ihya Ulum al-Din, the revival of the religious sciences. But Imam al-Ghazali made another substantial contribution, which I'm sure some of you are aware of, but many perhaps are not, and that is particularly in the field and the realm of philosophy. And it indicates his smart approach to a challenging problem. And this is something that distinguished the Islamic civilization of the past, and that is, one, they were not frightened to challenge the status quo. Secondly, they were not frightened to present new ideas. And thirdly, they were not also frightened even to change their opinions if they thought they were wrong. If they thought what they were producing was not necessarily effective, nor was it producing the necessary transformative outcome that they were looking for. So Imam Ghazali, when the community, the Muslim Ummah, was challenged by Greek rational thought, especially Aristotelian philosophy, they were challenged by the 9th, 10th, and 11th century, so much so, there were some Muslims who began to say that logically and philosophically, we can produce a book that is even better than the Quran. Yes, this happened in the Islamic civilization. So Imam Ghazali did not fight that through battles, but rather he did something very smart. First, he went and mastered philosophy. He understood the problem. Sometimes as a community, we continue to provide solutions without understanding the actual problem. And problems can only be understood if they are empirically tested and examined. Then you can provide appropriate solutions. So he examined the problem, mastered it, then published a book on philosophy in which he demonstrated to one and all that he's a master of philosophy. Yes? And then he went and did something extremely smart. He went and challenged his own book by writing Tahafut al-Falasifa, the incoherence of the philosophers, in which he deconstructed Greek philosophy and Aristotelian logic after having mastered it and proved that he's a master. That's one example of being smart. Secondly, most people, when they speak about Salah ad-Din, I'll come to astronomy very quickly. Most of us, when we speak about the history of Salah ad-Din, we associate it with what? Palestine and the Crusaders. Right? Although the Muslim historians never call them Crusaders. Take that as a note. They call them Al-Ifranj or the Franks because they wanted to always disassociate Crusaders from Christianity, which is very progressive in itself. And so, but one of the greatest contributions and one of the smartest contributions of Salah ad-Din was not his dispelling and his fighting of the Crusaders. If you read the books of history of Islam, Muslim historians would tell us that the impact of the Crusaders on the Islamic civilization was like that of a mosquito bite. In comparison, say, to the Mongol invasion. The Mongol invasion reshaped the geography of the Islamic civilization and led to the creation and formation of 3 other empires, the Ottoman, the Mughal, and the Safavid. So the Crusaders historically were not that grand in terms of their impact on the Islamic civilization. So there is something much smarter and much greater that Salah ad-Din did to challenge certain intellectual challenges that they were exposed to. You know what that was? Madrasas. Salah ad-Din was exceptionally smart with creating a lot of madrasas because he wanted to challenge an intellectual onslaught on the Islamic community of the time, and so he reinvested some of the funds into projects that were smart and they were effective, reliable, and had long-term solutions. And last but not least, to finish off, because the brother's gonna throw his mobile phone at me very soon, just very quickly, in terms of astronomy, the Ptolemy's astronomy lasted for 1,400 years, his geocentric view of the world. But everybody tried to solve a particular problem with Ptolemaic astronomy, and that is to do with the equant equation, they called it. Now, the Islamic civilization could have accepted the status quo and could have continued to repeat, like everybody else, the Ptolemaic astronomy and take it for granted and not challenge and break down those barriers which were imposed on the Islamic community. But rather, the Islamic civilization for more than 400 years continued to try to find solutions to the equant problem. By the 14th century, 3 major astronomers, At-Tusi, Al-Urdi, and Al-Shirazi, for the first time invented new mathematical theorems without which Copernicus could not have arrived at his conclusions in the 1600s. Fast forward to the 15th century, a timekeeper, a muwaqqit, a timekeeper who was working at the masjid in Damascus. He used to keep the time of Salah. But he also continued to work on the work of these astronomers, on the work of these astronomers, and then introduced an idea, not only an idea, now historians tell us what Muslims have done in the 14th and the 15th century was exactly identical to what Nicholas Copernicus in the 16th century produced. So much so it is not whether, but when and how did Copernicus copy from these Muslim astronomers. The point, my brothers and sisters, the Islamic civilization in the past was never frightened of taking a challenge and changing and moving out of the status quo and presenting smart solutions. And I hope and I wish, inshallah ta'ala, that this will be attained through the leadership of the Muslim Aid Australia. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.